The echo in the void. The Galactic Assembly had ruled for 12,000 years, from the gleaming spires of Centauri Prime to the asteroid colonies of the Outer Rim. Their authority was absolute and unquestioned. 117 species lived under their benevolent guidance, their civilizations carefully shepherded along paths deemed appropriate by the Assembly's Council of Elders. In the great archives of the Assembly, Earth was little more than a footnote, a cautionary tale told to ambitious young species. The humans had reached too far, too fast. They had challenged powers beyond their comprehension, and they had paid the ultimate price. The official records were sparse. Earth destroyed in the cataclysm of 4366, standard calendar. Human colonies across 13 systems eradicated in the subsequent cleansing. Species extinction confirmed. Case closed. For 12 millennia, no one questioned this history, until the signal appeared. It began as nothing more than a whisper in the void, a faint, rhythmic pulse detected by an automated monitoring station in what had once been human space. The station's artificial intelligence, following standard protocols, logged the anomaly and forwarded the data to the nearest assembly outpost. There, the report might have been lost among countless similar notifications had analyst Kurzana not noticed something peculiar in the signal's pattern. "It's not random," she told her supervisor, her four eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of agitation among the Threllan species. "There's a structure to it. See these harmonic resonances? They're mathematical. Prime numbers." Her supervisor, an older Threllan named Vor, clicked his mandibles dismissively. "Space debris colliding with cosmic radiation produces all manner of strange phenomena. Flag it for routine follow-up and move on." But Kurzana couldn't let it go. That night, she stayed late in her laboratory, running additional analyses on the signal. What she discovered kept her awake until dawn. The signal was growing stronger. 1 week later, the signal's intensity had increased by 7%. After 2 weeks, by 16%. The progression was clear and alarming. When Kurzana brought these findings to the regional director, the response was immediate. Within hours, the matter had been escalated to Centauri Prime itself. Within days, the Council of Elders had convened an emergency session. For the first time in over 3,000 years, the Galactic Assembly declared a potential civilization-level threat. The source of the signal was unmistakable: Earth, or rather what remained of Earth, a debris field of asteroid-sized fragments orbiting a dim star that had once been called Sol. "Impossible," said Elder Xarn of the Phylaxian Collective, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with agitation. "Earth was destroyed. Humans are extinct." This council verified these facts personally. "Nevertheless," replied Elder Thoth, the ancient Medusan whose species had joined the assembly before humans had achieved spaceflight, "something is broadcasting from the ruins." "A leftover automated system, perhaps," suggested another elder. "No human technology could survive 12,000 years of exposure to vacuum and radiation," Xarn countered, not to mention the thorough nature of the cleansing. The unspoken truth hung in the chamber like a phantom. The assembly had ensured nothing would survive. The cleansing had been absolute, or so they had believed. "What does the signal contain?" asked Thoth eventually. The analysis team projected their findings onto the central hologram. "It's a repeating sequence of mathematical constants, followed by what appears to be a date in the human calendar. A countdown, perhaps. To what?" No one had an answer. Elix had dedicated his life to studying humanity. Among his people, the Ardani, this was considered somewhat eccentric, if not outright wasteful. The Ardani were practical beings, concerned with commerce and diplomacy, not ancient history. But something about humans had always fascinated Elix. Their brief, chaotic appearance in galactic history, barely 3 centuries from their first interstellar flight to their extinction, had left marks disproportionate to their lifespan as a spacefaring species. The paradoxes of their nature intrigued him. They were fragile yet resilient, violent yet compassionate, primitive yet innovative. They had achieved in decades what had taken other species centuries. Then they had vanished, leaving behind only fragments of their story. When news of the signal reached the archaeological community, Elix knew he had to act. Official expeditions would take months to organize, months during which any evidence might be lost or contaminated. It took him just 11 days to secure an unauthorized research vessel and set course for the Sol system. The journey took 3 weeks. 3 weeks during which the signal grew stronger still, now detected by civilian ships across a third of the galaxy. 3 weeks in which the assembly moved from concern to alarm, mobilizing fleets and issuing travel restrictions. By the time Elix reached the debris field that had once been Earth, half the galaxy was in a state of panic. His small ship navigated the tumbling fragments carefully. Most were barren rock, scorched beyond recognition. But his sensors detected something unusual about one particular asteroid, nearly 30 kilometers across, rotating slowly around its axis. Beneath its cratered surface, something was generating an energy signature. Elix landed his ship in a flat basin and donned his environmental suit. The asteroid's gravity was minimal, allowing him to leap great distances across its desolate landscape. According to his instruments, the energy source lay 2 kilometers beneath the surface, accessible through a network of natural fissures. The descent took hours. As Elix squeezed through narrow passages and rappelled down vertical shafts, his excitement mounted. No official expedition had ever detected anything like this. If he was right, he was about to make the archaeological discovery of the millennium. The tunnel eventually opened into a vast chamber that could only be artificial. Smooth walls of some unknown alloy curved overhead, unmarked by the passage of 12,000 years. In the center stood a pedestal of the same material, inlaid with circuitry that still glowed with faint blue light. Elix approached carefully, his suit's sensors recording everything. The pedestal was clearly the source of the signal, but what had activated it after all this time, and why was it growing stronger? He circled the structure, studying its design. There were no obvious controls, no interfaces he could recognize. The technology was unlike anything in the assembly's archives. Then he noticed something etched into the base of the pedestal. Symbols, human writing. His translator worked for several minutes before producing a result. The message was simple. For HENDESTRs grow cold and ETAELAST LIGT AGEs Lazarus Protocol INITOA HEDI. Elix didn't understand the reference, but the implications were clear. This device had been deliberately hidden, designed to activate under specific conditions. A failsafe of some kind. He reached out, his 6-fingered hand hovering over the glowing circuitry. Professional caution warred with overwhelming curiosity. Curiosity won. The moment his fingers touched the surface, the blue light flared blindingly bright. The pedestal hummed, vibrations traveling through the chamber's floor and walls. And across the galaxy, the signal changed. On Centauri Prime, in the command center of the Assembly Defense Force, alarms blared as monitoring stations reported the transformation. What had been a simple mathematical sequence was now a complex data transmission, enormous volumes of information flooding every receiver capable of detecting it. "What is it?" demanded Fleet Commander Vox, watching as his officers scrambled to make sense of the incoming data. "Unknown, sir. The encryption is unlike anything in our databases, but the signal strength has increased exponentially. It's now detectable in every corner of the galaxy. Can we block it?" "No, sir. It's using quantum channels we didn't know existed." Vox's expression darkened. "Find the source and neutralize it. Now." But it was already too late. In abandoned mining outposts at the galaxy's edge, ancient systems stirred to life. In the cores of seemingly dead planets, reactors began powering up. In the darkness between stars, massive structures shed their camouflage, revealing shapes that had not been seen for 12 millennia. And somewhere in the void, dormant minds awakened from their long sleep, receiving the signal they had waited patiently to hear. Lazarus protocolo complete. Earth is lost. Humanity endures. The awakening. The Galactic Assembly mobilized its forces with unprecedented speed. Within days, a flotilla of warships converged on the Sol system, weapons primed, and sensors scanning for any sign of threat. They found Elix's small research vessel easily enough, tracking its energy signature to the asteroid where he had made his discovery. Fleet Commander Vox personally led the boarding party, his exoskeleton humming with barely contained power. They found the Ardani archaeologist in the underground chamber, still transfixed by the glowing pedestal. "Step away from the device," Vox ordered, his translator converting his native clicks and whistles into standard galactic. Elix turned slowly, his large eyes blinking in the harsh light of the military lamps. "You don't understand what this is," he said, wonder and fear mingling in his voice. "I understand enough," Vox replied. "You've activated some kind of human failsafe system. The signal has changed and is now broadcasting across the entire galaxy. Explain yourself." "I didn't activate anything," Elix protested. "It was already active when I arrived. I merely interfaced with it." "To what purpose?" "Knowledge. Discovery." Elix gestured at the pedestal. "This isn't a weapon, Commander. It's a key." Vox stepped forward, his soldiers flanking him with weapons raised. "A key to what?" "To humanity's legacy." Elix's voice grew stronger. They knew the Assembly was coming for them. They knew they couldn't win. Not then. So they planned for the future. "Impossible. We confirmed their extinction. You confirmed the destruction of Earth and its colonies. But humans were explorers, Commander. They had ships beyond the frontier, outposts you never knew existed." Elix pointed to the symbols on the pedestal. "This device was programmed to wait, to hide until the galaxy forgot about humanity, and then, when the time was right, to send a signal." "What signal? To whom?" As if in answer, the chamber shuddered around them. On the surface above, sensors on the assembly ships detected a massive energy surge emanating from the debris field, from all parts of it simultaneously. In the command center of Vox's flagship, chaos erupted as officers reported the impossible. The fragments of Earth were moving. Not randomly, but with purpose, aligning themselves into a configuration that defied natural physics. And they weren't just fragments of a destroyed planet. They were ships, or parts of ships, disguised as asteroids, their true nature revealed as ancient cloaking systems deactivated after 12 millennia of dormancy. Before the assembly fleet could react, the newly revealed vessels had formed a defensive perimeter. They were unlike any ships the assembly had encountered, their design organic and fluid, their hulls composed of a material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When the first communication came, it stunned the assembly forces into momentary silence. "This is Admiral Helena Chen of the Human Remnant Fleet. After 12,000 years, we have returned. Stand down your weapons." 3 days earlier, in the darkness beyond the outer rim, Dr. Maya Santos had been reviewing geological samples when the signal reached the hidden colony of New Terra. The signal bypassed all the colony's standard communication systems, instead interfacing directly with the quantum network embedded in the infrastructure of the underground city. Throughout the habitat, displays flickered and changed, showing the same message. "Lazarus protocol activated. Return imminent." For Maya, like for every other descendant of the original evacuees, this moment had existed only in historical texts and simulation drills. The Lazarus Protocol, humanity's final contingency plan, had been established by their ancestors when it became clear that confrontation with the assembly was inevitable. The plan was elegant in its simplicity: fake extinction. Allow the assembly to believe they had wiped out humanity completely, while a small fraction escaped to the uncharted regions of the galaxy. There, hidden from assembly sensors, they would rebuild, advance, and wait. For 12,000 years, they had lived in secrecy, Generation ships and cryogenic preservation had carried the first refugees. Later, hidden colonies were established on rogue planets and within hollowed-out asteroids. Over millennia, their technology had evolved along paths undreamed of by the Assembly, unrestricted by the careful controls imposed on member species. Now, the waiting was over. Maya joined the crowd gathering in the colony's central chamber, where Governor Elias Powell addressed the citizens. "Today, we emerge from shadow," he announced, his aged face solemn yet touched with long-awaited vindication. "Our ancestors believed this day would come. They entrusted us with preserving not just their genes, but their hope, their certainty that humanity would reclaim its place among the stars." Around Maya, people wept or stood in stunned silence. 12,000 years of hiding, 12,000 years of careful advancement, of technological development conducted in absolute secrecy, 12,000 years of remembering Earth, not as it had been at the end, broken and burning, but as it had been in its prime, cradle of a species that refused to accept extinction. "The Assembly believes they know humanity from the fragments of our past," Powell continued. "They remember us as reckless, chaotic, dangerous. Perhaps we were, but we have grown during our exile. We have learned patience. We have mastered technologies they cannot imagine." He paused, looking around at the gathered faces, faces that had never seen a natural sky, never felt unfiltered sunlight. "Yet we have not forgotten who we are. We are still human, and it is time to show the galaxy what that truly means." In the underground chamber on the asteroid, Elix watched as Commander Vox received the transmission from the human fleet. The commander's exoskeleton clicked and whirred as his agitation grew. "This is impossible," Vox said, his voice modulator flattening what might otherwise have been a shout. "Human civilization was eradicated. The Assembly confirmed it." "The Assembly confirmed what the humans wanted you to confirm," Elix replied. "They sacrificed Earth to save their species, a strategic retreat on a scale your military doctrine never contemplated." On the surface, the standoff continued. The Assembly fleet, though formidable, was outnumbered by the revealed human vessels. More concerning to Vox's tactical eye was the analysis of the human ship's capabilities. Energy readings suggested weapon systems far beyond current Assembly technology. "What do they want?" Vox demanded, both to Elix and to his communications officer. "Revenge. Territory." The answer came moments later, as Admiral Chen's voice returned. "We do not seek war with the Galactic Assembly," she stated, her tone measured but firm. 12 millennia ago, your predecessors deemed humanity too dangerous to exist alongside other species. They feared our unpredictability, our rapid advancement, our unwillingness to conform to Assembly standards of development." There was a pause, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "Those fears were not entirely unfounded. We were young as a spacefaring species, still learning our place in the greater cosmos. But your response, genocide, was unforgivable. Yet we have not returned for vengeance. We have returned to reclaim our rightful place in galactic society." Vox studied the tactical displays, calculating odds and outcomes. "And if we refuse?" "That would be unwise," came the reply. "The vessels you see represent only a fraction of our capabilities. For millennia, we have developed technologies in isolation, unbound by Assembly restrictions. We do not wish to demonstrate those technologies in conflict." In that moment, as if to emphasize the point, sensors detected new energy signatures throughout the system. Dormant installations on moons and asteroids revealed themselves, their purpose clearly defensive. More disturbing were the readings from the nearby stars, subtle alterations in their coronas that suggested manipulation on a stellar scale. Vox made his decision. "I am not authorized to negotiate on behalf of the Assembly in such matters. I request time to consult with the Council of Elders." "Granted," Admiral Chen responded. "But be aware, the signal that brought us back is now being answered. Across the galaxy, human enclaves are emerging from hiding. The Assembly must decide how to respond to our return, not just here, but everywhere. The emergency session of the Council of Elders lasted for 3 days. Reports flooded in from across Assembly space. Hidden human outposts revealing themselves in dozens of systems, advanced ships appearing as if from nowhere, installations of unknown purpose detected within the orbits of countless worlds. The humans had been everywhere, watching and waiting for millennia. Most disturbing to the Council was the technology the humans displayed. Analysis suggested capabilities centuries beyond current Assembly science, particularly in the fields of energy manipulation, quantum computing, and stellar engineering. "We cannot fight them," Elder Thoth finally concluded, his ancient form trembling with the effort of sustained consciousness. "Not only are they too numerous and too advanced, but they have had 12,000 years to plan this moment. Whatever countermeasures we might deploy, they have anticipated." "Then we surrender," Elder Ktarn demanded, bioluminescence flaring with indignation. "Accept them back into galactic society as if the past never happened." "The past happened," a new voice interjected. The Council turned to see a human woman standing in the entrance to their chamber, an impossibility, given the security protocols. She was tall and slender, her dark skin contrasting with silver hair, her eyes reflecting wisdom accumulated over what must have been a very long life. "I am Dr. Maya Santos," she introduced herself, walking calmly to the center of the chamber. "I serve as historian for New Terra Colony, and I am here to speak on behalf of humanity." "How did you enter this chamber?" demanded Karn. "That's not important right now," Maya replied. "What matters is that you understand us, truly understand us, not just the fragments of knowledge preserved in your archives." She gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the air. Images of Earth as it had been before the cataclysm. Cities gleaming under blue skies, vast forests and oceans. The achievements of a species at its peak. "We have not forgotten," she said softly. "Every human child born in the last 12 millennia has learned about Earth, not just its destruction, but its beauty, its life. We have carried that memory through darkened corridors of hidden habitats and the cold silence of rogue planets." The images shifted, showing the human colonies as they now existed, marvels of engineering and adaptation, cities built within asteroids and beneath the surfaces of inhospitable worlds. "We do not seek to destroy the Assembly or upend galactic society," Maya continued, "but we will no longer hide. We will no longer accept extinction as our legacy." "What do you propose?" asked Elder Thoth, his voice a whisper. "A new relationship. Humanity joins the Galactic Assembly, not as a subject species, but as equals. Our technology remains our own, but we will share advancements that benefit all species. In return, we require acknowledgement of our right to exist and develop according to our own path." Silence fell over the chamber as the elders considered her words. "And if we refuse?" Sarn eventually asked. Maya's expression remained calm, but her eyes hardened. "Then we continue our independent development. We claim the territories we currently occupy, which, as you've discovered, are more extensive than you realized. We establish our own alliances with willing species, and the galaxy adapts to a new balance of power." The choice, when framed this way, was hardly a choice at all. 1 month later, Elix stood on the observation deck of New Terra's orbital station, watching as ships from across the galaxy arrived for the formal ceremony marking humanity's recognition by the Galactic Assembly. "They're still afraid of us," remarked Admiral Chen, who had joined the Ardani archaeologist at the viewport. "The Assembly, I mean." "With reason," Elix replied. "You hid among them for 12 millennia, developing technologies they can barely comprehend. That's unsettling." Chen smiled, a human expression Elix had learned indicated amusement rather than aggression. "We prefer to think of it as planning ahead." "What happens now?" Elix asked, "now that humanity has returned to the galactic stage?" The Admiral considered the question, her gaze fixed on the procession of arriving dignitaries. representatives of species that had, for millennia, believed humans to be nothing more than a historical footnote. Now, she said finally, we fulfill the promise our ancestors made when they initiated the Lazarus Protocol. We rejoin the community of spacefaring species. We share what we've learned. We help build a galaxy where no species faces extinction for developing too quickly or thinking too differently. And if the assembly resists change? Chen's smile faded, replaced by an expression Elix couldn't quite interpret. Then they'll discover why our ancestors named our contingency plan after a human story about returning from death. She turned from the viewport as a chime announced the imminent start of the ceremony. Coming, archaeologist Elix. You did find us, after all. You should witness what you helped uncover. As Elix followed her, he reflected on the human signal that had started everything. A patient echo in the void, waiting 12,000 years to be heard. A message not of defeat, but of promise. Humanity had fallen, but it had never been gone. And now, the galaxy would never be the same.